and welcome to Group Chat live from the hellscape that is Las Vegas Summer League.
Oh, come on.
I am Justin Verrier on this fancy-ass set wearing these fancy-ass head microphones. That's Big Woz.
Yes, sir.
Live and in color. That's Rob Mahoney.
Yes,
Hello.
sir.
Wow, this is quite the setting here.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Every single year, it feels like Summer League gets bigger. Better for me anyway. Maybe not so much for Justin. But yeah, man, the atmosphere is just incredible. I thought for that Laker game, we just had an incredible crowd. It was just dope, man. It's just a dope experience.
Yeah, I would say act like we've been here before because we have 10 plus times in many cases.
That's true. Although I will say, I don't know if this is the typical Summer League experience. I think I've been remarking about this to pretty much everyone who will listen to me at this point. This does not remind me of the Summer League of old. And in fact, I actually think the crowd was bigger and probably more loud than it was even for Wemby's debut last year, probably because this is a Lakers crowd.
Yep.
They traveled to Las Vegas really well. This is Bronny's debut we're referring to.
Oh, it's bigger and better now, you're saying?
I'm saying it's at least bigger.
Wow.
I don't know if it's better. I have a tougher time making my way through the concourse.
Yeah.
But I've also seen some group chat fans.
Oh, I
Just
love
saying
that.
hello.
I love that.
Giving the wave.
I love that.
I mean, I saw a guy in a KCP jersey. He's a group chat fan whether he realizes it or not.
So where should we start here first? We have a pretty loaded agenda here. We've only seen one day of Las Vegas Summer League and only 2 to 3 to 4 games at this point. Do you want to start with the Bronny debut? Because I feel
let's
like
get into it.
that's the most natural place to start here. I'll be honest, by the second quarter, I probably forgot that Bronny was out there.
Yeah.
I forgot that I had to track him because he seemed pretty forgettable.
Yeah, because it was the Reed Sheppard show.
You're damn right.
Period.
Yep.
That guy was amazing, honestly. Just obviously a crazy high level of skill. Obviously has a nose and an IQ for the game. But for me, what was dope was he never got sped up. He just played at his own pace. It looked easy for him out there today. And then, Bronny had some moments where he tried to pressure him up and stuff, pick him up full court towards the end of the game. But the whole night, it was just, as soon as he got some space, he rised and he fired and it was just amazing, honestly.
It was very easy for him.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that he didn't come out here like many guards do and tried to force a ton. I think the Steph Curry comps are a little hyperbolic for obvious reasons. But you can see the evidence of a shooter who understands the impact of his gravity and how much defenses pay attention to him. And he was looking to set guys up. He was finding Cam Whitmore backdoor. He knows how to play in space. There's a reason why one of these guys was the number 3 pick and one of them was number 55. It's not exactly a fair fight.
I think there's a few things that tend to jump out to you in a Summer League setting, right? The older guys just being dominant in a way that suggests that they shouldn't be here anymore. These guys are too good for Summer League is a pretty established trope.
Often
at this
physically dominant, right? They just had a couple years in an NBA weight program that puts you miles ahead of a college athlete.
Cam Whitmore, very much that. But Reed Sheppard had a poise and a command of the floor in a way that instantly translated. And so I have a very hard time believing that guy is not going to just be an NBA player, let alone be a pretty good one.
He can really cook.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be questions about who he can shake off the dribble against real pro competition. He's going to have to show that he can do that, but he's got the moves. He's got the shot to lull people in. I think he's got the sense of the floor to really take advantage of it. And if you have all of that, you're going to be some kind of player. He may not be a star, but he's going to be someone to watch for sure.
So obviously Steph Curry is a little bit ridiculous, but who he kind of remind me of today is Jamal Murray, honestly.
I like that.
Just in the sense that
cross-racial.
Well, come on, man. You know what I do up here. But just in the sense that he doesn't need a lot of space to get his shot off. And once he gets a clean look, it looks beautiful coming off of his hand. And then they had a couple of plays. Of course, the Lakers adjusted as much as you can one might adjust in Summer League. But they started pressuring him further up on the pick and roll, sort of blitzing him even. And then as soon as he saw the defense coming, boom, threw it over the top, 4-on-3s on the other end. That was really something to watch, man.
It's also easy for a highly drafted player at Summer League to fall into the trap of wanting to establish himself.
Yeah.
Show out and show that you deserved that draft pick, right? Yeah. He really didn't fall into that at all. He just made the right play consistently, got into the paint, draw the defense, and then kicked it out to the open shooter. I hate to say it because it does fall into the white guy tropes, but he does play the right way.
Yes.
He is sneaky athletic.
Yes.
And the shot is, dare I say, wet.
Yes, the shot is wet.
A little wet.
He's got a wet Jimmy.
I want to see the parts of his game that transcend the racial profile.
Sure.
Because Reed Sheppard, I have been told, is a guy with a lot of electricity to his game, a lot of razzle dazzle, a guy who, yes, can make the right play, but can also just destroy people, and in a way that is a little bit surprising and can go a little bit counter to your expectations. So he came out, Boy Scout in game one. I would like to see the other side of Reed Sheppard,
I think we saw some of those moments, though. Like, he had that beautiful hesitation at the top of the key where he just left the guy and then made the floater all cash. Another one where, like, the dude was just psyched himself out for the defense, and then he fell to the ground. Like, he had some nice razzle-dazzle moments. Like, I was thoroughly wowed.
Also, I was pretty close to the court. Like I was in one of the lower
brag. Summer League humble brag here.
I staked out a good seat early. What can you say?
It's very important.
I'm a vet. He kind of gave it to Bronny a little bit a few times, like a little like don't shove me sort of like attitude, which you want to see from a guy like that who is a little undersized, but clearly is going to play with, again, dare I say, grit and determination. You know,
if you dare, I suppose.
Good hands as well.
Yes,
really good hands. So.
But as far as the undersize goes, that's where you really feel it with Bronny out here. Just how small he is against this level of competition, and we're not even into the actual NBA yet.
Yeah.
And the fact that because of that, he's going to be pigeonholed into strictly guard roles. He's point guard sized exclusively, and yet he's getting ripped in the backcourt.
Yeah.
The handle, I think, is what makes makes his future feel a little bit precarious outside of his name and the security that comes with that. You just want to see a little bit from him offensively to even get to the Avery Bradley, Davion Mitchell kind of level.
Yeah, getting ripped at half court, not great, obviously. I think, again, we knew the ball handling was going to be limited at this point in his development. 0 for 8 from 3, also not great.
Is that what you want to see?
So a guy that size who's not handling it in a super tight way yet and doesn't have the consistent jump shot to get respected, even in the corners. As of yet, he has a long way to go, but I don't think this is a project for next year or the year after. This is like, all right, in 3 years, is this guy going to be an NBA rotation guy?
So he's 2 years away from being a year away?
Yes.
Is what you're saying?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, Fran Fraschilla.
I don't even mind that kind of gamble, to be honest, with a player in Bronny who does have some physical attributes that could pan
Clearly
out.
an athlete.
Clearly an athlete. And has a good sense of when to cut. He does have the feel, and that's what makes you want to believe. It's not that the tangible things clearly are not there. The intangible stuff is pretty promising. And so if you squint hard enough, you can see a version of a player who can at least get reliable NBA minutes.
Yeah.
And that'd be a huge win with the 55th pick.
Yeah, that's why I understand why the Avery Bradley jokes kind of took off. But at the very least, I could see where the chalk outline of what he would aspire to be is there because he is small. This is a real short king summer league we're experiencing thus far, especially with Rob Dillingham, who I'm sure we'll talk about before. That dude is
very small. Yeah, well, and the big kings, the Zach Edey's, not playing as of yet out here in Vegas.
It's a real big and small store going on. I don't know. I haven't eaten for many hours. It is fucking hot up here. Anyway, but like Bronny, clearly point guard sized.
Yes.
Clearly an athlete. Clearly heady in a way that's showing in terms of how he's like moving around in space. But other than that, like trying to find his path forward, I think it is going to be like hitting the corner threes, being enough of a defender to stay on the court because that's going to probably be his primary asset. Like, I don't know. So I don't mind the comp so much unless you guys have a better one for him after seeing him only in this limited amount of time.
I think he's just got to be looking at guys like Pat Beverly, honestly. Like, he has to be a complete and utter menace. Yeah, well, not asshole.
It doesn't hurt. Yeah.
He needs to be a menace on the ball.
Yeah.
And I thought in the second half he did a little bit more of that, pressuring guys up. Because he's going to be relegated to only guarding point guards, he has to, like, make that a strength ultimately, right? Where it's just like, all right, man, we got somebody on the ball who's going to make it a nightmare for every team's opposing point guard. And, yeah, man, it's like Pat Beverly, Avery Bradley, Norris Cole, like, I don't know.
Norris Cole.
How many more short guys can we name here?
Like, these are the guys that come to mind.
That's a little bit of a different comp.
Yeah.
What's tough for guys in Bronny's position, and you can even look at Avery Bradley as an example. Avery Bradley had to go to I think it was then the D League.
Yes.
Work his way up to the Celtics. It's very hard to be in that role with that skill set and earn your spot onto the big-time NBA roster because you're going to get sent down to now the G League. And to get bumped up, you have to do all the things we're talking about. Play the role, play defense. It's increasingly difficult to do with disorganized G League rosters, in the same way that a setting like this one is not going to suit Bronny. The more organized the team is, the better they're going to be able to make use of what he does and not put him in bad positions. And he's going to be able to understand what his lane is, but he's going to have to go to the G League and prove it. He's going to have to go down and improve. And some of that is going to be creating shots in a way that he's not going to do at the NBA level. But that's what's going to take in some cases to bump your way back up.
That's kind of why I like his mindset of saying he has to be a defensive grinder. Because at the very least, he recognizes that his path is probably as a role player. And so he doesn't have any sort of grandeur visions which typically affect a guy of his caliber and of his celebrity. Because frankly, like, the arena was louder than I probably have ever heard it. I was in here for Zion. I was here last year for Wemby, but like, this was what, a 75% Lakers crowd. And I'm sure it was like a 90% just fascinated with Bronny crowd. This is unlike anything I've ever seen before. A kid with this level of celebrity playing functionally like 12th man.
Yeah.
Trying to aspire to that. Like, it's real, like, YouTuber influencer crashing the NBA in a way that I have never experienced before.
But the guys we've seen who are sort of that thing, you think about like LaMelo Ball as being a huge outsized presence, but came in with a ton of talent as a high lottery pick. This is totally different. We were walking to the set. Someone wove a mural of Bronny James and just hung it up in the arena. I don't think it's sanctioned. I don't know where it came from or who did it.
An area rug that's like, you know, Bronny like in animation form.
It's great work. Great textile work.
I got a picture of it.
Okay.
We'll share that to Twitter.
How is your textile work, Rob?
Not ideal. No. The crochet game, not strong. I haven't ascended to knitting levels of whiteness yet. I think that might be ahead of me at some point.
That could be a good feature for you. Knitting with Reed Sheppard.
If we can get Reed Sheppard in on knitting, I would be all over it.
Well, the other guy I kind of want to mention here who kind of took off in this game, Cam Whitmore.
Yeah.
One of the best athletes I think I might have ever seen live.
He was
flying at one point.
Play where he grabbed the offensive rebound, got on the floor, and in one fell motion just went back up with the layup. Didn't gather, didn't do anything. Like, that dude is an elite level athlete. And he was just way stronger than everyone out there today, just pushing guys out the way. The jumper looked nice. He looked really good. I think he's like setting himself up for some nice rotation minutes next year.
I mean, he has a chance to do something that I don't know that has ever been done before, which is win back-to-back Summer League MVPs.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I don't think he was all that impressive in terms of maybe some of the skill work. It's just that he is so clearly a different class of athlete than these 1%er athletes that populate all these Summer League rosters. Like, it's just unbelievable. Like, the brute force. I was saying to Kyle Mann, who I was sitting next to, like, I've never actually like wanted to like be an NBA player. I never really saw that for myself.
Why is that, do you think?
I think there was a very slim chance of it ever happening, and it happened at an early age where I was confronted with that truth. So I don't have any misgivings about that. But just to like fly around,
must be nice.
It seems really cool.
Yeah. He's a different level of athlete. He's a different level of just in terms of his advancement physically relative to a lot of these prospects. I think you may be poo-pooing his skill level a little too much. I think he's very skilled relative to this level of competition. He showed that he's an NBA player already. Yeah. He's just here to work on some things because he had some injuries last season. It's a good time for refinement for him, but he's among the players who are genuinely too good to play at this level.
Yeah, and in the bigger picture, I think I don't know where he fits in terms of the pecking order of the young core that the Rockets have so quickly assembled, it feels like, since moving on from James Harden. But, like, I'm excited to see it. Like, I don't know what the shape of the roster ultimately is. Reed Sheppard's shooting ability is going to be a very welcome addition. But I'm excited to watch what the Rockets do, man. Like, they have a lot of young, really cool, exciting pieces.
They have so much to figure out, and they just scooped up AJ Griffin for basically nothing.
Yep.
A guy who showed up out here, and I think a lot of teams should be like welcoming a prospect like that as just a good wing flyer. You know, I know he's had some injury problems. I know he's not going to make an all-defense team anytime soon. But you could do worse in terms of guys who can actually shoot and attack off the dribble. Why not take a chance on a guy like that, even if you're Houston, who has a lot of guys worth taking chances on?
I was just going to say, a lot of guys.
Too many guys.
Might be too many guys. On the one hand, you could argue that we've seen teams like this who have stacked a lot of young talent be successful in last year in particular, but in recent seasons, as the luminaries of our game are starting to age to the point where 60 games is really the bar. Having basically a 2 deep at every position, I have to imagine is going to lead to regular season results. Even if the Rockets didn't want that, there's just too much talent up and down this roster, and a lot of it is starting to mature. Cam Whitmore, one of those guys. But you can't help but ask yourself, like, is this the prime candidate for a consolidation trade? If only so, like, Reed Sheppard can get minutes. If only so we know what Jalen Green can be. If only so we know, like, whether or not Jabari Smith can play with Şengün, or they should pick one or the other. There's just, like, a lot here, and I can't really see the vision thus far, but clearly they have something.
I think it's an interesting question, though, right? Like, because they got Fred VanVleet to make their team more serious, but now they need minutes for Reed Sheppard. Like, Fred VanVleet and Reed Sheppard can't really play in the same backcourt. Like, two dudes, nobody over 6'3" or whatever.
But Fred guard's bigger than that.
He does, but like, I mean, sure. Like, I just wonder when you doing the Şengün thing, and now you're playing two really small guards. Like, I wonder if VanVleet's the guy where it's just like, yo, like, let's send him to a contender, get some picks out of it or whatever.
Outlived his usefulness.
Sure.
Basically. He was there to establish a floor and just like a personality and a professionalism of that team. Maybe they've gotten past that in the same way that we've talked about Joe Mazzulla kind of taking what Ime Udoka built with the Celtics, taking that to another level with his just basic strategies.
I don't know that the Rockets are that far along yet.
Probably not.
I think they are still in a stage where they're figuring out what they want to be.
Trading VanVleet would be a step back, though.
For sure.
Right? From the phase 2 or phase 3 thing or whatever.
I don't know what phase we're on,
but like, it's just accepting a reality where your young guys have to get minutes. You have to see what you ultimately have in these dudes. So, man, they got a lot of interesting things to parse.
All of that is true, and the Rockets almost made the play-in last year. And they very easily could have with better health and better luck. So if I'm in their position, I do think they need to try to pick a lane sooner than later, as far as, in particular, is Alperen Şengün going to be kind of your center and your hub of the future or not? And either way, I think, honestly, we've seen a lot of evidence to both ends to suggest that it's valid. And Amen Thompson is the figure in this that makes a lot of those avenues possible. And when you think about how do you put multiple small guards on the floor, maybe the answer is you play a guy at the 3 who's just a 100th percentile athlete in the NBA who can swing between whatever position you need him to guard.
In that Cooper Flag Zapruder film from the Team USA practices, Amen Thompson had one of those, like, is this guy literally hovering in over the court? Because he's that sort of athlete. And they have these athletes up and down the court. We talked about Cam Whitmore. We didn't talk about Tari Eason. Same sort of guy. Like, it's unbelievable the amount of just, like, the depth of talent. To the point where we talked about this before. They just had to give away a bunch of low first-round picks last year because they had too many stacking up.
There's no room for it.
Just bleeding it.
This is getting to the point of, like, the Lakers when they had the run of Brandon Ingram, D'Angelo Russell, and they just stacked like an absurd amount of young guys. Like, I think the Rockets low-key have kind of rivaled that in terms of just like high draft picks. The Lakers clearly made the move to get rid of damn near everybody. So we'll see about the Rockets though. Do you want to talk about Knecht really quickly?
Let's.
Sure.
I think he's okay. I'm a little dubious because he seems like less of an athlete than I was expecting, and my bar was already low for that. Kyle Mann and other people, Isaiah Blakely, our producer, is telling me, he's more of like a vertical sort of guy. And you saw that a little bit. He'll dunk on people's heads, get on the boards a little bit. But I don't know. It just seems a lot of those guys in LA now, especially with the Austin Reeves. Again, I'm literally not doing a
They're
bit.
Totally different players.
No, they're subtle athletes who don't have like a quick step.
But in terms of the roles that they play, like Dalton Knecht is a shooter. Like
I know.
He's going to be a movement guy for them.
But how much athleticism can you sacrifice around a LeBron James team if you're doing that at 3 positions?
Yeah.
Are you susceptible to a team like, for instance, the Rockets, who might just outrun?
I liked that he had a little bit more juice on the ball than I was expecting. Like, he attacked some closeouts pretty aggressively. The shot, for whatever reason, just wasn't falling today. But he's bigger than I thought. Like, I think he's making up for some of the lack of athleticism with size, quite frankly. I think he could get bigger and stronger and like guard up in positions. And like, when you're doing that and you bring his level of, diversity in terms of shooting, I don't know. I kind of liked him. He missed some wide open shots like that you would think a quote unquote dead eye shooter would make.
Sure.
But I thought he moved pretty well, and he has like NBA size, which is like super important, obviously.
And the shot ultimately did come around. He missed some open ones, but he had 5 threes in this game. He also is another guy who seems to understand. Look, it's cringeworthy, but the pun is going to be made. Like, the connecting type passes.
Oh boy.
He's got that. He's got the ability to facilitate. He's got the ability.
His name's Knecht 4.
Let's not.
That's pretty good.
Let's
you know
not.
how Paul George changed his number to 13? Maybe you're onto something.
Yeah. Knecht 4.
I
Get with it, Rob.
I cannot get behind that. But he does seem like the kind of guy who, in that mold of shooters that we've seen before, is not just an endpoint guy who's going to throw the shot up. He can be the one who's also dumping off to a big who's rolling to the rim at the same time. That's what makes him exciting, even though he does have these questions about some of the athleticism. I think he has pretty good NBA size, which helps and will help him kind of paper over some of that. But I think the Lakers can get away with a bit of those shortcomings because they have Anthony Davis. And so, yes, LeBron can only do what he can do at this age. Yes, in terms of the supporting talent, it's not a lot of like quick burst athleticism with the Lakers roster these days, but it's looking subtly better. And maybe that's enough, given the fact that they were already at least a pretty good team to begin with.
Max Christie was in the building courtside today. Youth movement in Los Angeles, Rob.
That's right.
Wow.
Gabe Vincent as well. Good to see that he still
Where was
exists.
Jalen Hood-Schifino? Is he out here?
He was there as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why he's not playing in Summer League.
He's hurt.
Okay. In fairness, I'll do apologies to Jalen Hood-Schifino.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, the Lakers might play at a pace not seen since like the 04 Pistons. On the other hand, Knecht had what we talked about with Reed Sheppard, where he did seem to have a certain command of what he was doing.
Yeah.
Very decisive in his movements as well. Seems like a heady sort of player. And wasn't trying to just like completely overwhelm what the Lakers were trying to do offensively. So there's that. He's also 23 years old.
Yep.
And he's as old as Kyra Lewis, who is the number 13 overall pick in 2020, who was playing off the bench for the Rockets. Kyra Lewis has been in the league so long that he has bottomed out, and he is now trying to
get back into
back in, whereas Knecht is just starting his journey. Like, that's weird.
I call that the campaign.
I mean, Cam found his way.
Yeah, he was in Summer League like 2 or 3 years ago, and then he, ended up sticking back. So there's hope.
And Kyra Lewis, you say that he appeared in this game. I am technically aware that he played in this game. Could not tell you a single thing that he did in it, unfortunately.
A lot of those guys on these rosters. Orlando Robinson was there. Moses Brown. A lot of guys.
Well, those guys at least do some stuff. And Moses Brown is just a giant man out here.
He's huge.
Certainly notable.
Any other Summer League first impressions you guys want to get to?
Well, you mentioned Rob Dillingham. I feel like we should talk some about him for Minnesota
very
today.
Very skinny and not very tall at all.
Not at all.
Short king. Here they are.
And he didn't
was
feel
that
like...
was that a king? Not making any long-term proclamations, but
2 for 12
did not cover himself in glory in his Summer League debut. And he's the kind of player you would think might. A ball-dominant, aggressive, really athletic player who can call his own number basically whenever he wants. You saw a lot of the moves that will be successful for him, but the finishes were not there. And I don't know if that's just some game one jitters. Maybe he's just kind of getting his feet wet out here. I don't know what the layoff has been for him in terms of what he's been working on. He didn't look like the guy who would be a high lottery pick. He looked like the guy who is going to need some time to work into this thing, and that's fine.
Yeah, and he didn't seem like super quick jitterbug type either, which I was, kind of concerned by. But yeah, he's lucky that he's been basically put in a situation where everybody around him is bigger and more athletic than is average for their position. So because of the size and the collective athleticism that Minnesota can bring to bear, like they can, kind of hide his deficiencies on defense. But I would have liked to see a little bit more juice for sure on the ball today.
He's also in a unique position out here in that the Wolves need him to be good.
Yeah.
Mike Conley's going to be 37 years old. Monte Morris is gone. Jordan McLaughlin is gone. They did not really backfill at point guard other than Rob Dillingham. So I'm sure Ant will be handling the ball plenty. Joe Ingles, as a natural and hilarious Kyle Anderson replacement, is going to be handling the ball some. Nickeil Alexander-Walker will guard point guards.
Yeah.
But Dillingham's going to have to play. And he's going to have to be at least pretty good to justify the kind of investment that the Wolves have made in him at this point.
That was my big question with the strategy behind going up and getting Dillingham. The Wolves obviously paid a pretty big price in order to bring him in. I like the thinking behind it, because how else were they going to get a guy with his sort of upside?
Yeah.
And you do start the succession of when Conley ultimately does decide to retire, which at this point might be 5 years for who knows, because he seems like
he's immortal.
Keep going, exactly.
But I do like the succession plan, right? That's something that makes sense. You can see the what they're orchestrating in bringing Dillingham in the first place.
But is he going to be able to contribute not only this year, but even next year?
Yeah.
Seems like it's going to be tough.
This year seems like a stretch.
It does. Yeah. And it was only one game. It was his debut. But
And
Jordan
especially-
Hawkins, by the way,
too good to be here.
too good to be here, but he's also like 150 pounds, let's say. Like,
Yeah.
he is a very slight, frail guy, and he looked noticeably bigger than Dillingham. Obviously, Hawkins is bigger and longer, but like, he was towering over him at one point. So, just in case anyone wasn't aware, Dillingham is short.
And just the
That's
last thing
conclusion.
about Dillingham, it's like, with the Rockets, it's like, okay, can you contribute to a team that's trying to make it past the play-in, right? Which is hard enough in itself. On the Wolves, these guys are trying to get to the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
Like, is he going to be a contributor to an NBA Finals level team? That seems very far off from right now.
Well, they did have. This is a deep cut. We're just into naming some guys' territory. I acknowledge this. Nadir Heafy. I don't know if you guys watched him today.
I did not.
21-year-old French prospect.
How much time did you take learning that pronunciation?
It didn't take that long. Just do a quick ask around.
Oh, really?
Shout out to Dane Moore of the Dane Moore podcast. He hooked me up on that one.
Okay.
6'1" combo guard. Probably should be playing for the French national team right now. Is not for some reason. Seems like he had some real juice. Came in and was just like a lightning bug player in 14 minutes, 11 points and 5 assists. Had more to him, honestly, than Dillingham did in this game. You don't love to see that when one of those guys is your lottery pick and one of them is a flyer, but I wouldn't be surprised if Heafy ends up as somebody's two-way spot by the end of this.
Any other guys that jumped out to you on this first day?
The people love DJ Burns, predictably. I don't know that NBA scouts will love DJ Burns.
Do you love DJ Burns?
I mean, I love watching him play.
Does he play like you?
A little bit,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
I see the comp. We're moving at similar paces, that's for sure. Especially as I'm getting more and more advanced in my age. I'm moving a lot like DJ Burns, which is to say, we're both screen and stand guys. Neither rolling nor popping, just kind of hanging out in our general vicinity after the screen. But the touch with him is undeniable. The problem is no one is going to be feeding undrafted post guys for possession after possession, and he can't move defensively. And if you can't do that, I don't know where the NBA spot is going to be for you.
Your Orlando Magic,
Yeah.
collectively might be too good for Summer League.
Yeah, I think we found out what the second apron was for. It was breaking up the Orlando Magic Summer League team. These guys cannot be allowed to persist.
What do you think about them? I wasn't able to catch that game, but you clocked in.
In particular, I still just really want Anthony Black to be a thing. I know we've talked about him before, including at last year's Summer League. He just has such a cool game and a lot to offer if the Magic can navigate the weirdness of it. And he's still figuring that out himself. I think one of the good signs in this one, 9 free throw attempts. If you have that sort of weird cadence to how you play, learning to weaponize it by drawing fouls is a really important step. And I don't know that he can do that against everybody, but even doing it out here in Summer League feels like a positive development.
Is Jet Howard a guy?
You fucking shoot.
Yeah.
I mean, we knew that. He also, cocked back a right-handed dunk today in a way that I did not know he had quite that kind of lift to him. Another guy in the Reed Sheppard mold who was driving to pass. And I thought, for these shooters, who we all know what they can do, we all know what they sell, we all know what their NBA rosters want of them, for him to come in and also show that he can set some other guys up, I think is a promising development. Yet another player who probably is not going to be guarding anyone in any notable way anytime soon. But if he can do enough offensively, he can earn minutes. And honestly, that's where the Magic are with both these guys, Black and Howard. Can you get on the floor? Can you be a part of the rotation? There's some opportunity there for both of them, given who Orlando is either in a position to lose in free agency or has already lost in free agency in the case of Ingles.
Now, the subsection of is he a guy is I didn't realize he was still a guy. Jarrett Culver, still a guy who's
Still a
playing
guy.
Oh my
Summer League.
goodness.
We're just remembering some guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might want to get his passport renewed for sure. It might be done.
He's
for
been in the G
Jarrett
League.
Culver.
He's been hanging around the States.
Any prospects you want to bring up? Maybe at the pool or
No,
at the tables?
no. I came here for Bronny and Bronny only. In Clutch, we trust.
One other guy I have questions about, and another guy who's been in the NBA, not a rookie, Imani Bates. It's a tough setting for him because it's an inefficient scorer, kind of doing his inefficient scoring thing. But I watch him play. He definitely still has the pop that got him on scouts' radars in the first place. Could he turn eventually into a budget Karis LeVert?
Huh.
I think something like that might be possible for him. And maybe that's considered a low bar given where he started at the beginning of his certainly like prospect kind of like high school journey. But look, he's trying to work his way into the league. He's logged considerable G League time. He spent a little time with the Cavs, but he's a tough guy to place as a role player because he doesn't really have a role player game.
No, he's just a microwave kind of guy.
Yeah. And if he can be good enough at that, he'll find a spot somewhere. He's trying to level up at the thing that he's good enough at, but has also been kind of holding him back.
So in case the Cavs didn't have enough Karis LeVert,
they
have a budget one. Just waiting.
We have Karis LeVert at home.
Let's flip now to the big NBA news that happened while we were sitting in the stands here. Jalen Brunson signs an extension, 4 years, $156.5 million extension. Takes him now 5 years into the future with the New York Knickerbockers. So he takes $113 million less than he could have gotten had he waited until next offseason.
Yes.
There's a little bit of a discrepancy here where in totality, he could make about the same amount if he signs another max after he gets through this max contract.
And we expect that he will.
He took on a little bit of risk in order to open up some opportunities with the Knicks and in order to like keep the friendship going.
Right. Friendship has a cost.
And I kind of have to believe like this is the fringe benefit, or if you're a little bit more cynical, the quid pro quo of building a team based around a group of friends, right? That we'll get you your boys, but you have to help us make it all work.
Well, Waz, let me ask you this.
The answer is no. I'm not taking a cent less.
I'm not asking you. I'm asking. I feel like Waz values our friendship perhaps more than you do.
Okay.
You know, Bill comes to you, says, I want to keep group chat together, but it's going to cost you $37 million.
I mean, here's the thing, though. I think Brunson, as people have brought up, is making a ton of money off of the court.
Yes.
By virtue of the fact that he is doing what he's doing for the New York Knickerbockers specifically.
It's a big deal.
Like all kinds of commercials, all kinds of endorsement deals. And so
Models, perhaps.
I think the thinking is one, he's making okay, people that are cynical about this are like, yo, in the open market, you would have gotten more money, right? But the other part of that, in the open market, you would have gotten more money to be in Charlotte, to be in some other place that isn't New York. And so I think the totality of that has to factor in. And also, I think that this is also a sign that Jalen Brunson believes that Leon Rose and Worldwide West and the sort of crew that they got up there at MSG are there to stay, and they're going to be there for the long run. Because if those guys don't have jobs in 5 years, which I'm not saying they won't, I'm like all indications of that, these guys are entrenched over there.
Oh, yeah.
But if they don't have jobs in 5 years, who's to say the next guy doesn't be like, Jalen Brunson's not a max player to me? And then he just doesn't take that money. I think this is a bet that the crew that's in charge right now will be in charge when it's time for him to do his next deal. And I think that's a pretty safe bet because it feels like they're going to be pretty damn good for a pretty long time now.
It's still a massive concession on Brunson's part.
Oh, yeah.
Basically unprecedented in terms of a player giving back is the wrong term, but conceding in a negotiation.
He's making less than OG Anunoby.
Can I give you a comp? Because
please.
I've been thinking about this. Clearly not the same sort of circumstance, but I hearken back to the Heatles taking a little bit less in order to fit in Mike Miller and
That
other
was
guys.
shaving, though.
But here's the thing. It was three friends, essentially being like, we just want to come together and we just want to figure this out. Clearly, like, there are a lot of differences, but there's the same sort of logic where it's like, it does seem to be the trade-off. If we want to be together, then we're going to work with the organization to make it all work financially, mathematically.
I think some of the difference is Brunson is already right now on one of the single best contracts in the NBA, the best value contracts for a team in the NBA relative to what he produces. Nobody extends that kind of contract anymore. There's no reason for a player to do it when they can hit the market and make so much more money. The reason it's worth Brunson's while is not just because he gets to hang out with his pals. When he does hit free agency, so he'll have a player option in the final year of this extension. He can opt out, hit free agency with 10 years of experience, make upwards of potentially a projected $80 million at that point. So yes, you are taking a little less guaranteed money with that final year of the deal that you might otherwise get if you hit free agency next season. But you're still able to hit free agency down the line, make a shit ton of money. And in the meantime, you do offer the Knicks a little bit of relief for doing more or less what you wanted.
I think what people, again, he's making less than OG Anunoby. And if you watch the NBA playoffs last year, somebody who doesn't understand salary cap mechanisms and, aprons and all of that, like to watch the Knicks play and to think what that guy makes more than Jalen Brunson would be insane, right? So I think it says something about Jalen Brunson and his character, honestly, that he is not sort of beholding to the trappings of NBA superstardom and status and stuff like that. He's like taking a more like holistic approach to this. And I think it's really cool to see. And I think the PR and goodwill from this that he's going to get from Knicks fans.
Oh, God.
Is just like, I can't even think of a bigger PR boom. Like, it's nuts. Like, they might as well start building that statue right freaking now. It's insane.
We already did Knicks Mount Rushmore. He is just chiseling his own face in with every dollar conceded.
I think we'll see the benefit of this immediately when Mikal Bridges signs his extension, whenever that happens. He has 2 years, I believe, left on his deal. You have to assume this is like a clear step one in order to get him to that point. And so that trade already looks better.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people had a lot of consternation over the amount of picks they paid for him because he hasn't made an all-star. I think I loved it. I think we all kind of loved it.
I'm
if
100%
you can get Mikal
board.
Bridges, you should get Mikal Bridges.
Especially when you're trying to beat the Boston Celtics.
Yes.
Like,
and especially since they didn't give up players on top of the picks. I think that is one thing that people tended to forget. Like a lot of the other packages that we saw on that level in terms of picks, like for instance, the Cavs deal for Donovan Mitchell, including like Lauri Markkanen, who ended up being an all-star. They didn't give up an actual player in those deals.
We should say about Bridges, though, he was also a guy who was on a below-market contract, and the Nets were worried that he wouldn't do this very thing. Like, why would Mikal Bridges, a player who could get more if he hit free agency, ever extend with us, the Brooklyn Nets? And because of that, they traded him, because they didn't have the security to know that they could actually keep him when he hit free agency. The difference with the Knicks is he wants to play with these guys, and they all want to play with him. And so maybe the Knicks actually can swing that kind of extension, as you're saying.
The flip side of it, though, is does this become more tricky when you ever want to move on from a Dante DiVincenzo? Some of the guys who aren't on the marquee, who are a part of this Nova Knicks thing happening here. Like if you need Josh Hart's money to make a trade work to get whomever down the road, do you not do that because you have to keep the friends together? They have a literal podcast together. So maybe we actually have like actual experience and insight into this.
I mean, half the roster are those guys.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Julius Randle, I guess, is theoretically movable, but all of their core are these guys who are kind of tethered together. And maybe you can have a hard conversation with Jalen Brunson or whoever the primary stakeholders are there now in your estimation to say, look, we got to move Dante. Look, we have to move Josh Hart to make this kind of move happen. But part of the appeal for those guys right now is getting to do this as a collective.
Yeah, I think it depends on the player. If it's a legitimately world-changing player, I'm sure if back in the days, people thought Joel Embiid might one day be on the move, right? Something like that. I think everybody would understand why Dante DiVincenzo might not be able to be on the team anymore.
Yeah.
But outside of that kind of deal, I don't think they do it. I think they really are like building this whole like family all for one type of situation. And they're taking care of their guys.
Family organization, as you're saying, like figures in power who stand to be there for a long time. It's looking a little crime family to me. As the shapings of it from a certain point of view. But Waz, you mentioned something about Brunson that I think is very important. I think we talk about in our way with basically every star, which is when you have LeBron, what does having LeBron allow you to do that's unique from other stars? When you have Jalen Brunson in New York with all of those kind of off-court monetary benefits, this is what can happen, is you can find ways to trim relative to the cap and the apron and make savings on the team, and he's still going to be made whole by the fact that he's a New York Knick. It's a very unique partnership, and it's allowing the Knicks to do something that basically no other team can do.
I wonder if Rick Brunson did a new deal this offseason.
It could be an interesting coincidence for some people to monitor.
Filed it away directly to the family trust. Well,
you can make coach whatever you want, by the way.
So second apron, obviously making it more difficult. And that's why this is so important, right? To add other guys on top of your star players. I wonder if this is like maybe the start of a little bit of a trend. We saw LeBron sort of do it or suggest that he would do it and taking like a slight haircut on his contract. Is this like a bad precedent, ultimately, if the biggest player in New York is taking less? to help his organization out.
What is the bad precedent?
For players earning potential.
Yes, if I'm the players union right now, I'm a little annoyed at the idea that Jalen Brunson is not maximizing his dollar potential. But like,
he individually is not, but we should say the players still make the same money because of the escrow system.
Sure.
Like the money is coming to them due to the percentage of the cap that they are going to be paid.
I think the flip side of that is it puts pressure on other guys
that are coming up. It's like, look at Jalen Brunson.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and if you're a player in the union, it's like, bro, don't try to make this the standard for our guys going forward. Our guys want what's coming to them.
And if you want to use the LeBron comp, obviously after he got through the Heat deals,
I thought that was your dog, Justin.
he went back to making sure he got every goddamn penny.
Yeah.
Until now.
Yeah.
So these things move in cycles. I can see someone maybe getting into a situation where they took less, the team flips around, does a Blake Griffin, for instance. That's like the worst case scenario. And that's the type of thing I think if you're on the players union side specifically, you have to be conscious of. I don't know how much it matters in this regard, but something to note at the very least.
I think the NBA is a better and more interesting league when guys have different motivations. And sometimes that's playing in a certain market. Sometimes it's playing with certain guys. Sometimes it's playing a certain style for a certain coach. Sometimes it's just making as much possible money as you can make. And when you have that variety of perspectives, I think it just leads to better, more interesting summers and player movement, and the orientation of the league looks more interesting.
So you never answered the question.
What was the question?
Would you take less?
I posed the question to Waz.
I know. That's why we're turning back to you.
I would take $37 million less to podcast with you guys every day of the week.
Huh.
Let's just hope Daniel Ek doesn't hear this.
Yes.
So here's the part of the calculation.
I can't afford to make negative $37 million. So
here's part of the calculation, though.
Yeah.
If I go take more elsewhere, then I have to do more work. You know?
And that's and again, I think it's important, like the relationship that Brunson has cultivated with the New York public, with the fans at MSG. I think there is actual value to that. I don't know what the price is, but like just knowing you're cultivating this connection, and then also like forever and ever when Jalen Brunson can no longer make a jump shot in the NBA, he can count on the bonds and the connections that he's building in New York City. Like, I think there is a certain value to that if you take a long-term view of it. And I think that's what Brunson is doing. He's taking a very long-term view of the project of the New York Knicks. It's freaking nuts.
The real championships are the friends we made along the way, Waz.
I think it has a benefit if he gets like the Dirk treatment and he's just cashing in after the fact because they're giving him fake jobs.
Sure.
Which is kind of what you're suggesting.
Well, fake jobs. Look, consultancies are very real jobs, I can assure you.
Is that his role? I actually don't know.
Dirks, I think he's technically a consultant with the Dallas Mavericks.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to say about Las Vegas? Are you happy to be here in the 120-degree heat?
I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm having a great time. Yeah. Somebody got to get Warren Legary on the phone and talk about the AC and the Thomas and Mack, because goddamn, is it hot as hell in here.
It's
but
very hot.
Man, just the energy and the vibrations, man, to think that like all these people are here for a common love of hoop. I get pretty,
You are waxing poetic a little bit.
Yeah. I love it.
And a common love on the most sicko possible level.
Yes.
You're right about the AC. It was very hot in here today. It did not stop what I saw to be a man in a full bear costume with a Steven Adams jersey. A little late for Midsommar, but I guess we'll count it under the wire.
Also a little dated now, unfortunately.
Perhaps. I mean, but that's what we're out here. Like so many people out here with the classics, the retros, their favorite role player that got traded away from their team. That's the scene.
Well, speaking of attire, we haven't brought up this beautiful shirt that Waz has had made for the rest of us.
That's right.
I thought we just weren't going to mention it. That we're all on Waz's shirt.
So what would you call the style of this shirt? It's like 90s
I don't know
on the street.
What it's actually called, but yeah, it just reminds me of like a Cash Money or No Limit Records album cover. That's what it reminded me
group
of.
Chat 23-24, and it has
this
all of our beautiful faces
including
on it.
Waz literally holding the Larry O'Brien trophy.
Larry. Shout outs to Larry.
Let's make it an Emmy next year.
Oh, wow. Us holding Emmys? Can we win Emmys?
Podcast Emmys?
Maybe
we could get a
Webby.
Yeah.
Well, what do they actually give for podcasts?
We'll figure it out.
Hopefully max contracts is what they get.
Now we're talking.
For podcasts. All right, we'll wrap it right there. So we're taking a little bit of a break. We're easing into our summer schedule. Won't be back until the beginning of August. talk about the Olympics and everything else going on there. But we'll probably be on that pace until we get deeper into September. So we'll see you next time. Thank you to Ben Cruz. Thank you to Tucker Tashjian. Thank you to Isaiah Blakely. Thank you to 5 other people who I can't see because the room is dark over there. Thank you to you guys.
Wow,
thank you for making those shirts.
Yes, thank you, Wos.
Of course.
We'll see you in a couple weeks. See you later.